You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Here's a hot take to start today's podcast. That could have been the Toronto Maple Leafs shit-kicking the Carolina Hurricanes. It's time for the Wednesday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by Bet365. It's Nick Alberga, Jay Rosehill. I don't know about you, man. It was tough coming to grips with the Maple Leafs not being involved in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. A tough watch.
I would agree. I was watching that going, part of me, look how good Florida is.
Yeah.
And then part of me being like, the Leafs, I said a million times, if they can get by Florida, I think they're in a really special spot. But no bueno, man. They're cleaning out their lockers.
The one thing I would say is the consistency we see from Florida on a game-by-game basis, and not to build in excuses, Carolina, the rest versus Russ conversation, but yeah, watching that Florida Panthers team, they're just a juggernaut. They're a beast. They come at you in so many different waves. I thought Bobrovsky had a moment in that game where he's making save after save after save, and the secondary pieces, again, Rosie, Luosterainen's got, 12 road points in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Ekblad's been doing his thing. Mikkola, like there's just so many guys who pull their weight. I can't say the same about this Maple Leafs team, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's differences, all right. I mean, that's the standard. The Cats right now, they could very well go on and win another Stanley Cup, 2 in a row, back-to-back, 3 finals and appearance. That's a modern-day dynasty, if you ask me. And they've got the stuff, man. They've got their depth, they got their D, and to me, it's just like they all have their own. They all have the same attitude. Like they've all committed to an identity, and it's like there's not one outlier. Well, this guy plays a little bit this way, but then you got these guys playing. Like they're all just like, we are the Panthers, and they all play the same way. They've all bought in. I do think some guys have kind of reinvented themselves over there to be like, okay, I'll do what they're preaching here. I can get on board with this, and it's just a runaway train, man, that the Leafs found out is very difficult to stop. And if you don't have your best, you will get embarrassed, as they did in Game 5 and 7.
Pretty much. And the Canes essentially got embarrassed in Game 1, so that made me feel a lot better about life. They had played 10 games in the Stanley Cup playoffs, had lost 1 game in regulation. They were 5-0 on home ice. I love how the Panthers just go in there and beat them, a place they thought they had in their back pocket. They did not. And over the course of today's podcast, we're going to dissect some of the news and notes from locker room cleanout day. Do you remember any of those days? And I don't know. I was skeptical anything was going to be said, and I was right.
Yeah, you don't hold your breath with this group. They're very tight-lipped, and I understand why. I get it, and all the talk about the media and this and that and protecting yourself and your teammates, and I get both sides of it. I've seen both sides of it, and but like for the Toronto Maple Leafs to be a team and an organization that likes to kind of, they're very in tune with the pulse of what's going on in the media. They try to keep people close, and they see everything, and they like to kind of ideally be in control of what's being said, which you understand. It's a big business and organization. But it's almost like, well, you're not very good at it. Like why can't those guys give the fans like what they want to hear? And you see other teams saying things that would be nice to hear, and you want to see some accountability being taken. You want to see some passion. You want to see some distraught, emotion, and to kind of connect with the fans in that way. But they never seem to do that. They seem to say, yeah, wasn't our best game, and we had some passengers, and yeah, they were hungrier than us. And it's just like, what the hell are you saying that for? And they think they're saying that to protect themselves and not. But it's like, wow, man, you're pouring fuel on the fire, it seems like. And whether that's injuries or what you think about it, or just their very monotone, nonchalant talk with their interviews, I just don't think they do themselves any favors. There's lots of stuff on the internet. I wish they said this, I wish they said that, and it's like, yeah, that's pretty standard. Hockey players are famous for just giving the quotes that people want to hear, and you can deflect and not open yourself up to more scrutiny. But I feel like they're trying to do that, and it just comes up short, man. Like people, again, had lots to pick apart about yesterday.
Yeah, so obviously we were doing the podcast while everything was unfolding. I was just sort of directing quotes from Media Day to the screen here. But I went back and had a chance to watch a lot of these, and Like even Willie Nylander's too cool for school approach, like I think he's gone off the deep end a bit in terms of like, man, you got to be serious a bit. It's like when you're in a relationship and you're an idiot like me, the girl's like, you know what, there's times to be serious. Like there is times for Willie Nylander to take it and be like, we weren't good enough. It starts with me, and that's all we want to hear. Honestly, I think Leafs fans are not asking for too much, and this is me as somebody who covers the Toronto Maple Leafs saying that we're not asking for too much. Just accept accountability and responsibility for what has transpired the last decade. And for some reason, they come out, Rosie, and we're taking, like, you remember when you did projects as a kid and you had like the APA source check like format? We're taking credibility from Matthew Tkachuk and Brad Marchand and to an extent like Paul Maurice on what's cooking in this market. And all the conversation on Media Day was about the media and how heavy we are in the Toronto Maple Leafs, how harsh we are. How about talking about the shitty ass team on the ice? Dude, I can't believe it's Wednesday and nobody, including us, has brought up the fact that Maple Leafs went 2 for 20 in a series on the power play. This juggernaut power play, which is supposed to rescue this team the last decade, again, nowhere to be found when it matters, Rosie.
Yeah, I think they're just past that. Like it's been so many years of the same talk and the same what went wrong, and now it's just like, good Lord, like now it's just like a whole cultural big picture type of thing. You're not even bothering to get down into talking about the numbers and the power play and whatnot. And I guess I just want to touch on the media thing, and maybe we did the other day, but everyone construed what was said by Tkachuk and Marchand and Paul Maurice and what these players think of playing in Toronto as the media is bad and wrong and they're to blame for all this. I don't think that's what anyone was saying. It's nobody's fault that it is the way that it is. This is a monster market. There is 10 times more media members, personnel, cameras, microphones, hit pieces, shows, articles than anywhere else. And just by the nature of that, there's so much more going on, so much more scrutiny. Everyone's got a different take. There's more people giving their opinion. Therefore, there's more opinions, and it covers the gamut of everything. And they feel that. And it's not that the media is bad or needs to do anything different. I don't think they're blaming that. It's just the nature of the beast that you're playing in that market. And yes, that makes it more difficult to play hockey and be successful when you have that kind of a spotlight on you. I've felt it. There's no discussion in that. But it's not black and white. It's not one or the other. The team's fine. It's the media's fault. The media's fine. It's not any. It's just the nature of the beast with this organization. And I think that got misconstrued quite a bit, and people are up in arms, especially the media people. They get their back up too if they get any scrutiny. But at the end of the day, I understood what they're saying. It is part of the process, but everyone knows that's what Toronto is like. Everyone knows that's what it's like to play on the Maple Leafs. And I think as much as any other team in the world, the Toronto Maple Leafs organization needs to do their due diligence on their players and like, are they fit to produce in this market? I think that's a huge point that probably other teams don't really even need to consider.
Yeah, and all I'm saying, I just didn't want to bury the lead. The fact that they choked away another Game 7, didn't no-show in Game 5 and 7. We talked all year about the crucial nature of home ice advantage, and they shit themselves again when it mattered most. And then they come out for exit interviews, and everybody's just asking about the media. Are they too harsh on you? Are they too harsh on you? How about the fact that the too many passengers comment? I know producer Vic, that threw him in a loop, and understandably so. No follow-up to that, just no accountability, no responsibility. And I talked about this ad nauseum yesterday. I hate exit interview day. I think it's the most cliche day of the NHL schedule. Nothing comes out of it. Nothing will come out of it. And that's exactly, there were some bits and pieces which we're going to break down. But I think the big thing, we're waiting for the other shoe to fall in this market, Rosie. Brendan Shanahan's contract is up. There's been rumors of a crucial, huge board meeting coming up on Thursday. From my understanding, there's going to be change. From what I'm told late last night, no decision made on Brendan Shanahan just yet, but I think there's going to be movement. You know, they have like 3,000 people working for the organization. This is already out there. It sounds, and I know Elliot Friedman brought this up yesterday, streamlining is going to be a big thing. So, you know, the 36 AGMs they have, there's not going to be 36 AGMs anymore. There's going to be some movement. That's my understanding. And they haven't made a decision on Brendan Shanahan. I don't know about you. I think the writing's on the wall. You saw it on his face. I just don't know how you make a change at the top, or don't make a change at the top, excuse me.
They're bringing Elon in to cut the fat, are they?
Pretty
It's
much.
it's a monster.
Well, dude, honestly, like we've said it so many times in this podcast. How many times do we like pinpoint a person? We're not going to single somebody out, but like, what exactly do they do? Like, what's their day-to-day operation? You can make that case around the league. I love when somebody gets canned and then they show up and they're like an advisor. What are you advising? There's always that question.
Yeah, it seems like with this organization, the thanks for being around and we'll take care of you. There's a few cushy jobs where you're just kind of on the payroll. I remember in Philadelphia, it was not too different, where you got a lot of the old boys club hanging out there, and this guy's cruising in, and this guy has an office, and what's his title again? And it's just kind of being around, just being around for the sake of being around from the outside. I get from the inside, you think, hey, the more minds and the more hockey minds, and if we're in a tough spot, it'd be nice to hear some different opinions and perspectives. Fine. But, when things go the way they did with the Maple Leafs this year, you're probably going to look at what can we change, right? And if that is a monster machine with so many different cogs and pieces of it, maybe you need to streamline a little bit, get it smaller. Sometimes it can get out of control, and there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of hands, and it can get kind of convoluted, and you want to bring that back down to, like you said, a more streamlined approach. And we will see. There's a lot of Dubas era stuff left over, and Pelly's in here now, and Tree's kind of been in for both sides of it. I am sure they're going to have a big board meeting. I'm sure they're going to have a meeting of the minds and say, what do we want to look like from here on out? And that'll be exciting to see what they come up with. I think the writing's on the wall for a lot of different things, and some others are up in the air. So that'll be the kind of stuff we cover down the next week or two, I'm sure.
Weirdly, this is relatable. Anybody who has a job and a new boss comes in, you're scared shitless, regardless of your position with that company. And I think everybody knows that Pelly comes in and he can decipher what he wants to do. It sounds like he has full autonomy. And how many times you see a new boss come in, just clean house or whatever, and bring his own people in? I'm not suggesting Pelly's going to do that, but I think a lot of moving parts to this. I think a lot of hands are on deck, and I wouldn't be shocked if there's substantial movement. Like, for me, it's pretty simple. I think you promote Brad Treliving. I've been saying this for a couple weeks, and I think you promote somebody within to be the GM of this team, whether it's Shane Doan, Brandon Pridham. But would I be shocked if somebody from the outside comes in? Probably not at this point.
All I want to know is who is making the calls to the teams and putting the offers out there and feeling out is this guy movable, and talking to the agents. Where's this guy's head at? Does he have interest in this? What's he looking at? Can we come together and maybe start to get closer to maybe becoming, putting together a deal? Like, who's the GM? Like, I don't know all these other bloody words. I don't really care. President or I don't care.
But it starts from the top. I think that's the leadership from the top. That's the problem with the Shanahan plan. It failed epically, and he's the guy at the forefront of the core four who didn't want to dismantle the core four for years. So that's the pushback there.
Yeah, and I think that if he leaves, that'll be what it's about. The timing is perfect. Like, the reason we're talking about Mitch Marner so much is because his contract is up. Brendan Shanahan's is as well. He was part of the Dubas era. He committed and ran it back, and he was the guy that believed in this group, who ultimately, with the big boys where you invested all of your money and put your core, belief and money into, they have come up quite spectacularly short, and it's clear now that together they're not going to work. So you look back and say, well, what you committed to and doubled down on was not didn't win you a Stanley Cup. And that's the ultimate goal at this level. Shanahan wasn't in here to come and make the second round and have a good run against the Panthers. It was a Stanley Cup, and maybe Stanley Cup or bust. We're going to find out about that. But again, it doesn't help him that the lineup of his contract and what it would be tough for them to be negotiating a big fat contract with the taste in everyone's mouth right now.
The one thing I can't comprehend, and it pisses me off, quite frankly, is that from Shanahan's perspective, people suggest it's not a results-oriented business where it's more so about the gate. You're always going to get gate in Toronto. They can be dog shit, and maybe they're saying maybe it's not a loss for Shanahan because they get to round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs and they get to a Game 7 and they made a shit ton of money. But results are results, man. Any job you have in life, 2 playoff series victories in 11 years, it is time to go. profoundly. Like it's over, man. It's just time to move on, man.
Yeah, and it's tough to say, man. Like it could be an end of an era, and it hurts because this era was exciting. There was so much potential. Like with Shanny, I mean, I grew up like he was one of my top 2-3 favorite players. I remember those series he played, winning the Stanley Cup, and what he did for Detroit, and I just respected the hell out of the fact that here's an all-star who can put the puck in the net, who's high-end talent and got all this stuff, but he doesn't rest on his laurels. He says, I can do more. I'm willing to do more. Like he's fought like Bob Probert and stuff like that. He would go to war. He would go to battle. He was part of those teams that literally, it seemed like they were going to war when they were trying to win the Stanley Cup. He knows what that's like. He knows what that feels like. He was the epitome of that. And then to double down on this group of softies and then really dig his heels in, it'll be his downfall if he in fact leaves this organization. And it kind of bothers me. Like I want to just say, Shanny, dude, like what this takes. Like this, I know this is the new NHL and you can do that fancy shit in the regular season. And these guys have got trophies and you're giving them contracts. But like you got to know when you watch the playoffs that those big boys, they come to the front of the line every time. And without them, you're going to get left in the dust. And they got taught that lesson 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 years and 5 years and 6 years. It's like, God, man, like you need some dogs in there. And maybe they just kept hoping these guys would find it and learn their lessons and mature and get that experience and then find it. But they sure as hell didn't, man. Game 5 and 6 and that stunned look on their face and their flat attempt at even pretending to get into those games was all you need to see, man. Those together with that much soft kind of players and purely skill-minded players, like they didn't go to war for you. They could have won that series if they did, but they just every time they just weren't capable of it. And that bugs me because Shanny was the epitome of that.
I know, and it's just weird because he hasn't been the same as like a president of a team. And put it this way, we were talking in 2019 is a time for change. And I think the bigger issue and the bigger problem here is that they doubled and they tripled and they quadrupled down on this core that everybody but these people knew wasn't going to work in this market. And there's even conversation coming out of exit interview day yesterday about potentially bringing Mitch Marner back. We'll get to the Tavares conversation too. Like, how dumb are we? Like, how could you even suggest that after whatever that was in Game 7 and Game 5? And it was the same movie, dude. It's being like forced against your will to watch this shitty ass movie. And you got to watch it. You know the ending. And that was the same feel I had waking up on Monday morning.
Yeah, it's kind of like a relationship where you are just holding on for dear life, just hoping things will change. And it's just clear you guys aren't meant for each other, and it's not right. And you just keep, holding on for dear life because you're scared of, breaking that apart. And then what your perspective is it going to be worse without? And I think of this core 4 and, you draft these guys and all the hype and the expectations and the excitement and potential is just through the roof. And you've drafted all these guys. I mean, Matthews and Marner and Nylander, and you convinced JT to come in. It's like, holy, we're looking pretty good and everyone's excited. And then, oh, you came up short for this reason, or maybe it was that reason, or if we just had a goalie or just got that save, or, we need to play a little bit different style, and then it'll all come together and you hold on to it. And obviously now knowing what we knew, it's easy to say that they held on for too long, but I do understand from their side of the things going, man, like, we can't, like in 2019, like, can we really cut this loose and just blow it up? I mean, hindsight, you could probably say that would have been better, but at the time, I get why you could try to put some other pieces in play, maybe a different coach or, and they held on and they held on for too long. And I get why, but there were people yelling, it's the writing's on the wall. We know what this is. You're not going to turn these players into something that they're not. And ultimately they weren't able to turn into playoff performers. It's just the same bullshit numbers that we've been looking at, except now, 4 or 5 years later, they're even worse, and it sucks. And there will be change.
Producer Vic's got a poll up in the chat right now. Should the Leafs run it back? The options are no. Option 2 is also no. So we're not going to see this team run it back under producer Vic. I'm not sure if I read the super chat thing, so I'll read it again. Our super chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a super chat. Proceeds from our super chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada. and 3rd in the world. We got Rick Vaive coming on. I had a chance to spend some time one-on-one with Rick yesterday regarding his Toronto Sun article from Monday. I love when former players in this market, like yourself, express themselves and are not afraid to just give an opinion and tell it like it is. And I thought Rick did this in his Toronto Sun article. It's entitled, "If You Can't Stand the Heat in Toronto, Time to Go." And I spent about almost 15 minutes with Rick Vaive. We'll play that later on here, Rosie.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with honesty. I don't know why guys are kind of afraid to do it. If you're, especially like for him, he just obviously, a very well-known Maple Leaf from the past, a guy who, cemented his legacy in many ways here. He's very well known, knows hockey, he's around, and it's not his job to do it like it is ours. But you put a reporter, a microphone, or ask him his opinion, you can tell that he's passionate about it and that he's, he feels something and he has an opinion and he wants to say it. And it's not even his job to do so. I mean, I don't blame him. I didn't even hear what he said, to be honest with you, but I can imagine what it's like by the headline. And yeah, why not be honest? Why not give your opinion? We do it all the time. And now guys that don't even do this for a living are speaking their mind as well, which isn't really all that normal and with the Toronto alumni. But it's pretty obvious, man. I mean, you just look at any amount of numbers or stats that you want, look at the records, look at the production, look at the contracts. You'd have to be kind of a fool to come up with a different idea of what happened.
There's just some people out there that are good running it back, and it's bizarro world to me. But nevertheless, Rick Vaive coming up here on Leafs Morning Take at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. I know a lot of people during the playoffs didn't realize we're in podcast form too. I had a couple people reach out on Twitter and be like, "Oh, if only you guys are in podcast form, not just YouTube. We're in podcast form." So you can find us wherever you find your podcasts. And also don't forget, great friends over at the LeafsNation.com do a really, really outstanding job. So make sure you go check that out. I might write an opinion piece later on this week or next week, just giving my thoughts on summing everything up, my feeling. I just needed a couple days to decompress. And that seemed to be the consensus around Leafs Nation as well. People are pissed this year compared to others, of course.
When are they not pissed at the end of the season, man? It's you watch that game last night, Florida, Carolina, and you're just like, maybe if you're in a different division or something, like if you don't have to, like they're so good, and they've come up against Boston when they were so good. They've come up against Tampa when they were so good. And now it's Florida, and I get you got to beat the best to be the best and all. I get there's other good teams in the West. I get it. But like, I can't help but just think like now when this was as good of a chance and as good of a team as they've had in this whole era, which is kind of why it's extra frustrating. But to come up to lose to them, you can't help but wonder, like maybe if we faced a different team in, the quarters or whatever to get to the conference final, it could have been different. And it could have, but, and they were in there, like they were up 2-0 against them. Like game 6 was just like this clinic on how to play playoff hockey. Like to quote John Tavares, they were very close in many ways, but there's that huge drop off that this group has always had. And it's game 5 and game 7 where they are a million miles away from close. And I think that to see that again at crunch time, and also to finish off the season with that disgusting taste in your mouth watching game 7, if it would have been a 2-1 overtime loss where they just battled and were so close, everyone's ideas might be different about all the stuff we're talking about right now. And for the people that wanted change and had seen enough and do not believe in this group, maybe that was better for those type of people to say, embarrass yourselves on the way out, have the worst game 7 in the history of the league at home for the second blowout ass kicking in a row at home. And then that will kind of force the door open to invoke change, which is probably where we're at right now.
Personally, this is less about the opponent, more about the Maple Leafs. I've seen them lose to everybody. I think it was just coincidence. It was the Florida Panthers. I truly believe the Maple Leafs, this team, the last couple of years was good enough to beat anybody in the playoffs, and it was a lack of inconsistency that kicked them in the ass or the nuts or whatever body part you want to inflict. Like it wasn't about Florida to me. It was about the Leafs. They beat themselves again. It's always the same shit. And we've seen it against Columbus, Montreal, Boston.
It's
The list
true.
goes on and on of playoff opponents. Again, less about the Florida Panthers to me. Your motorhome or travel trailer isn't just for getaways. It's a moneymaker on wheels. Most RVs sit parked in the driveway with RV Easy. You can rent out your motorhome or travel trailer and earn over $20,000 this year. Founded, owned, and operated by Canadians, RV Easy takes care of everything, including full insurance coverage provided for every rental. And best of all, you choose when to rent and set your own pricing. List your RV for free today at rvezY.com. That's rvezY.com. RV Easy, rent your RV, make money easy. So obviously me and Carter Hutton went over things yesterday, locker room cleanout day. What stood out for you? I know Craig Berube spoke about losing their structure. I have no clue what this team's structure is. Mitch Marner, Tavares, where do you want to start?
I'm going to start with Auston. That's what I wanted to see the most of. And I know he's taken more heat than he ever has after this series with the production. And it was clear to me and everybody else that he was hurt basically all year. He had an absolute off year for his standards, especially down the stretch. Didn't look healthy or himself playoff wise. And you're just just tell me that your wrist is absolutely trashed. You're getting complete reconstructive surgery on this ligament or that, whatever. And let's be able to save some face, at least in the fact that, well, at least he kind of has a reason why. Like, just shed some light on, like, how hurt were you and what does the future look like and what are you going to do? What can we expect next year? And he gave the bare minimum, if you ask me. And like, you going back to last year with Woll being hurt and him being hurt and Willie's headache, and then there's just like on to the next. Like, no one addresses it. I think the fans kind of, again, if they want to control the narrative and their look in the fans' eyes, why are they so coy about injuries? And why do you get to learn nothing about what happened at the most important part of the season if you're trying to keep, the media on your side and the fans on your side and keep everyone kind of on the same page? Man, they don't do it very well. I mean, other guys, Tanev and Stolarz are talking about their injuries. So maybe it is completely personal that you just don't want to, say that. But like, I just don't get the closed doors and the shadows and whatnot with this guy's injury. He is the captain. He is the superstar. Can we just hear if he's like, even just like just tell me anything. And like, but he's just it leaves so much to the imagination that people run wild with it and think it's not even an injury and he's full of shit and he's just trying to protect. And I don't believe any of that. I would just like him to say this, like Chris Tanev said, my sternum has been XYZ, or I had a concussion. I don't think it's the 1980s where if you say my wrist is buggered and my back is buggered next year in game 1 of the season, everyone's going to go, let's cross-check him in the back and slash his wrist. Like, come on, guys. Like, this isn't maybe in the middle of a series. I get why you don't say what's hurting, but why not now, just to help the fans kind of come to terms with what that was?
Always careful on speculation, but I wonder if this is chronic, because I had the same reaction yesterday where it's like, you don't play hockey for like 4.5 months. And then the other question I had, if this was lingering in training camp, why didn't you take 3-4 months off and like wait? Why did you play in the Four Nations? Like, for me, It opened up a whole lot of can of worms when you could have just nipped it in the bud and said, hey, it's this. I've been dealing with this. Let's move on. But I just think it lingers now. And we tried to go through the pros and cons yesterday. For me, there's way more pros than cons in deciphering what you've been dealing with. It's really, really bizarre. And truthfully, I think the whole Steve Simmons thing a couple of years ago hurt him at the core. The whole COVID-19 thing coming out, I think really, really rattled his cage. And ever since then, pretty much said nothing when it comes to injuries, what's been ailing him, even the wrist thing a couple of years ago. But it really is a bizarre situation. And just, again, it leads me back to the chronic road, where it's something chronic that's never going to go away.
That's pretty scary for a young superstar like him that you're invested in, man. I hope that's not the case. It's like, what nowadays is so chronic, but we've seen it with like Hockenpah and these different guys
pain?
where,
who knows, right?
I know backs are a wild and crazy thing, and going under the knife is a big deal, but guys so often do and say, thank God it fixed it. And it's kind of scary to think that you're that hurt where you're that much of a shell of what you're capable of, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the only option is just play at half percentage. Like that's
Like
kind of
it's weird to
scary.
me. I'm not questioning this guy's dog and his compete. I'm not. I think it's difficult to play this sport in this day and age. There's a lot of wear and tear. But so you get hurt in training camp, and it's so easy to play revisionist thinking. But you're telling me, so we're like 4.5 months away from the season. You're telling me over this time, if you rested, you could be close to 100% or 100%. So why didn't he take that time to start the season? We all knew they were going to the playoffs, with or without him. They win without him all the time. Why didn't you take that time to get 100% for the stretch drive is my question. Like, there's so many follow-up questions, Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, I know you could have taken, like, why didn't you take November, December off? And yeah, we would have talked about it. And I mean, no one's going to question a guy who can't play for 2 months. Obviously, something's going on, and we knew it was going on. Why are you going to Germany to get it looked at? Which he did talk about. That's to get this injury looked at. And I would have way rathered that. There would have been a bunch of speculation and whatever, but they just didn't think that would help, or playing obviously didn't make it worse, and they just thought time would take care of it. But I just can't imagine how that's the case when you look at him shoot the puck and get in there and get involved and do the things we've seen him do through a bunch of his spectacular seasons. And then it was just a shell of that this year. How would time off not help you? And how did the last off season not help you? Did you actually get hurt in training camp, or did you just realize you still feel like garbage in training camp when you start giving her? And what is this season going to do? What are you going to do? Just wait and hope that the time will like, how is anything going to be different if this is some chronic injury where last summer didn't even make one iota of difference? You were not even close to 100% in training camp. Like, it just, I would way rather him say, I'm going, I know this is the problem. We know what it is, and we're going to fix it. And then I'm going to rehab the shit out of it, and I'm going to be coming back at 100%.
Yeah, dude, it's just bizarre world. It's really, really weird. I know a lot of people in the chat making a good point. Producer Vic as well in our personal chat. First year as captain, maybe you want to nut up and just play through it. Again, it's
Craig
so easy for me. Yeah, exactly.
Wanting to show him. I can see that. And like, we're trying to win the division and trying to set ourselves up for the best playoff look. And all those things may have been possible. But after month after month after month, if that's all it is, and you're the superstar and you can't even hit the net anymore, you'd think that, hey, boys, what do you think about December, January off? And then we'll see if we can get this thing back to a hundo.
Do you believe that Yanni Hakanpää played 2 games as a Maple Leaf? Like, can you believe? Nobody talks about that guy, dude. He just skated. He probably had the same 10 on the beach as Dennis Hildeby. No, actually, I saw Hakanpää in the press box in Florida a couple times. I don't know, man. It was that type of year, that type of finish. But I think it's right to, I don't want to say question Matthews, but wonder like what the hell's going on, because for me, he didn't confirm anything yesterday. We all knew he was hurt. You don't go from 69 goals to one more goal than AJ Greer, your boy on the 4th line for the Florida Panthers, popped at number 2 last night. He is tied with Mitch Marner. He's 1 goal behind Auston Matthews here in the playoffs. It's just crazy, crazy stuff. Curious to get your thoughts at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Rick Vaive, the interview's coming up. But what do you think of Mitch Marner being very, very non-committal compared to John Tavares, where this guy opens up? Yeah, we talked this morning, me, Berube, Tree Living. Like, I couldn't believe they're rushing to a decision. They're running to a decision on another guy who's failed to win in this market. It's crazy.
I know that, and it's just with John. I think that with his $11 million cap hit in his career, in his contract here, you were always kind of excited because he was playing quite well and being effective throughout, the stretch. And you're thinking, oh my God, like, is this going to be a $4.5 million guy? Like, we can handle that. He's still showing that he can compete, and his hockey IQ is so good that he can be effective. And then he pops off, almost scores 40, and now they're talking about $8 or $9 million. Like, whoa! But then they lose in such spectacular fashion. I've talked to people who know him, and he's not a big money grubber guy. He cares about everything you'd want, and everything that he shows he cares about. He wants to be here. He's sickened by the lack of success to the degree that everyone wants it to be. And I'm now, after knowing what we know and how the season ended and how they're speaking, it seems like they could get a deal done with him at a much lower figure than maybe we thought it would be a month ago. I think that's possible, and I'm okay with it. people are like, you got to change the characteristics and the personalities in that room. And he was the captain and he's a big dog and he's going to have to always be. I don't think so. Look at the way Max Pacioretty reinvented himself. John Tavares is always going to be the guy that people look up to until his last day in the NHL. When he walks in the room and does everything right, he's setting an example for everybody else. And if he starts to take a backseat in the twilight of his career and move down to the third line, and maybe he's only on the second unit, and who knows what that looks like, but with a cap hit that's X, when he's showing that he's not really slowing down, he played some of the best hockey of his career, I think it makes complete sense to bring him back personally. Again, you're not building the team around him, and he's the guy. He's just a nice piece that he's capable of doing X. You only have to pay him Y. He knows what this market's like. He likes it. He has the passion. He's felt where they came up short, and maybe he can help rectify it. Who knows? But I don't mind bringing him back at $1 that we were thinking of several months ago. It makes sense because you can't just start cutting people loose because then the fear is like, well, what the hell are you going to bring back in? Who wants to come to Toronto? Who's capable of XYZ? What are the expectations and what's the hierarchy of these new guys? It's scary, and you're already getting rid of a Mitch Marner, assumably. So I don't mind the talks that they're seemingly looking like they very well have a chance to get a contract done with John Tavares.
Dude, it sounds like they're running to get this deal done. I couldn't believe it. He's like, yeah, we had positive talks. Like, nobody knows anything that's going on. We don't even know what the president's still cooking with this team. He's already having combos. Leads me to believe that there's been a hush-hush months ago that John Tavares is returning. But all I'll say on that front, I don't mind the decision to bring JT back. I think it's got to be on your terms. And if, he can do a very hero thing and take a pay cut to stay in this market and try to win, man, that like to get value on a John Tavares contract after the last one, I think would just be so beneficial, especially when you head into a monumental summer for this organization. And on the Marner front, like all these people saying, how are you going to replace Mitch Marner? Like, we don't want to replace Mitch Marner. That's what got us in trouble to begin with, is Mitch Marner. I think there's different ways you can reallocate that money, whether it's 3 guys, 4 guys, 5 guys. I think the big thing for this team, they lack serious depth. It is the top 6 and then everybody else. Whether we want to have that conversation or not, it's 4 players. Everybody else, Matthew Nyes, I think, ahead in that combo too. But it's got to be more depth up and down the roster. They tinkered with the blue line last summer. For me, it's the bottom 6 this year, Rosie.
Yeah, people are saying, well, you don't even get into the playoffs without Mitch Marner. It's like, dudes, they've been in the playoffs for 9 years. He's only got 100 points once. He's not this messiah that has just done ungodly things that is going to be really hard to replicate. He's very good at a lot of things, and the fact that he kills penalties and is kind of can be defensive minded is a bonus. That's hard to find, no question. There's lots of value in Mitch Marner, hence why he's going to command the kind of money that his next contract is going to be. But when you already have a William Nylander and you already have an Auston Matthews, can you afford to pay another guy like Mitch Marner? That's always been the question of too many eggs in the basket. The core 4, why do we run it back? And they've been too hesitant to get rid of one of those guys because of all their positives. But everything he said in his post interview was like past tense about being here and my time here. It all seemed to lead towards he wants to get out of here. I don't blame him. I think that he takes a lot of heat and he could use a fresh look. It's tough because he's from here. He lives here. I think he's here in the summertime. Like, it's going to be so much different for him to have to go get a different place in a different city and pack all your shit and bring all your stuff and meet all these people. And his wife and his baby are now doing all their thing in this new town where they don't know anybody. That's a huge thing personally. It's difficult to leave where you're comfortable. It's such a sick setup for Mitch Marner to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that he's done it for his entire career. And I think now it's probably going to be time to move on. And nothing about what he said makes me feel like he wants to try to come to some kind of agreement with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know if it just seems like it's going to be very easy. Both sides are ready to move on. And I didn't get any indication of anything different from his exit interviews the other day.
It's just facts. And again, this is more about the Maple Leafs than it is Mitch Marner. These guys are just way too similar a player. They're all soft as baby shit. I'm sorry to say it. They need some dogs. They need some bulldogs. They need some guys who play a different brand, a different style. Because at the end of the day, yeah, they're sick. They're wicked. They got wicked hands, great jab. It's the same shit when you put them all together. And it does not work. And that's why I think there's even pushback on John Tavares. But he's entering the later days of his career. I don't want him to be a focus on this team anymore. I think Matthew Nyes is ascending into a core status. I want to throw that fucking thing out the window. Core 4, I don't want to talk about them anymore. It was the worst era of Maple Leafs hockey in recent memory, the last decade. It was a shit show. When I look back at it in 20 years, 30 years, I mean, what a joke that was considering the talent they had. Plain and simple.
Well, it depends on your perspective, and if
my perspective's a Stanley Cup. They didn't
exactly. If you're only result orientated and Stanley Cup wins, they had 0. So yeah, you can look back and say, wow, how exciting was that Hockey News cover where everything, like if you're into winning Rocket Richard and Hart trophies, and that's cool. And having, a guy who almost gets 70 goals for the first time in how long? It's all exciting. And but at the end of the day, if the only thing that matters, and the only thing that does matter in Toronto right now is a Stanley Cup, they came up short. I'm not going to call it the worst era ever. People are comparing my era of like Kessel and Phaneuf to being better than that.
Oh, dude, I'll take that right now because you know why? There was optimism they're going to get first.
Blew the lead against fucking Boston. Like, I think people are just gross taste in their mouth right now. But I don't know, they don't talk about the core 4 in Florida, right? They just talk about the Florida Panthers, and they need to get away from this. Let's hope these guys can do everything for us. And it just so happens that those guys don't seem to display a lot of character, a lot of emotion, or a lot of passion that is very crucial to playoff success. And hence why we're doing these shows right now at May 18th or whatever the hell it is right now, and they're done playing hockey. I mean, good little run at it with all your talent, but you're going to come up short every time when you don't have those pieces that the eventual winners always have.
They all say they're brothers. Whenever I played sports with my brother, I was the first guy in a scrum. They don't play like brothers. When you play with a brother, you're fucking defending your brother out there. And I watch these guys, it's like peel around, like they're not brothers. They're not brothers.
And Willie, if you look at some of his things that piss, I remember that it was quite a few years ago, but he like completely dogged this forecheck and just quit and let the guy come past him and take the puck.
Wild.
And that was like gross. And then he had that non-back check this series. Game 70, I think he was going behind the net, could have like went and battled for the puck and just looked at it and just coasted from like the goal line all the way back out of the O-zone to do a line check. He does that stuff that's like, God, do you know how bad that looks for people dying for some passion and for some grit? So, you have that type of guy. And then you have the Mitch Marner guy who would spin off a check and backhand no look through the middle. And then Auston, who, doesn't seem to have a heartbeat sometimes and is just totally with it. Like I can't imagine him having that type of moment where Connor McDavid is just like, enough is enough. I need to wake everyone up and snap them to attention by fucking leading and just showing some goddamn vigor and passion. He doesn't seem to have that either. So you need to move on from some of that. You need to get away from some of that non-heartbeat stuff and get some men in there. The only problem is with today's day and age and the millennial generation and who's 25 years old in their prime right now, all these kids from this pussy generation, it's hard to find. I talk to guys that run teams and are drafting in the dub and running XYZ, and they're like, we can't find it. So it's not like you can snap your fingers and just get this Nathan McKinnon in there, which is the next difficult task if Mitch Marner does walk. You look at a Sam Bennett, yeah, that'd be great, but guess what? What's the percentage of getting Sam Bennett locked up to come to Toronto? I wouldn't hold your breath on it. So even when guys are out there, what's the chance of you getting them? It's a very difficult task to get this team to have a bunch of playoff performers with the dog in them, with the skill and the ability. It's going to be hard, but you've got the Nylanders and the Matthews, and you got to go out and try to complement them with some other stuff. Obviously,
I smashed the Bin Laden doc the other night, and during the 3-part series, it's tremendous on Netflix. Check it out if you have a chance. They showed like Guantanamo Bay and the waterboarding and all that shit. I think that the Maple Leafs version of that, like Cruel Intention and waterboarding, would be just showing a Panthers game on repeat for 100 straight hours, and you can't sleep. Shackle these guys to the Scarborough Bluffs and just show them Panther hockey, because that's my takeaway, dude. The consistency, shift after shift after shift. And while the Maple Leafs showed it throughout the season, they couldn't push through. They couldn't be consistent. They lost their structure. They lost their game when it mattered most. Plain and simple. And I'm happy Craig Berube has seen that now.
It was like they have the wrong guys in place. Like no one's ever played that style of hockey. They've never had to, I don't think. And then you get Craig Berube in, and you're kind of like, it's kind of working. They're showing some signs of it. Like the season was great at many points in time, as good as this team's ever been, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, it's like you're getting these guys to kind of just put on the costume and pretend they're that type of player, and it's not in them. And when the going really gets tough and you actually just have to do it and just be that guy, the costume just only gets them so far, and their true colors show up in game 5 and 7, and it's like, you do not have that dog in you. And that is why it is unanimous across the board that Mitch is going to be gone, and they're going to try to change the DNA of this team. The other guys have contracts and no move clauses, and you're not getting rid of your captain. You just gave the C to, like, I can't tell you how big of a deal that is in Toronto to give the C. Like, it's not a tweet or a press release, it's a ceremony. And they talk about the past captains and what this is mean. And you need to kind of like brush up on your history on who has been in what years and what eras. It's a huge deal, and rightfully so. The history of that team is phenomenal. So they're not going to do anything with their captain right now. They got him for 3 more years or something like that. He's not going anywhere. Willie's not going anywhere. They just locked him down this year, last year. And it's just Mitch is the odd man out. And we'll see if Johnny, takes a pay cut so that you can try to move 2 new guys in that are going to affect change on this roster.
In support of Sick Kids, we got a few super chats to get to, starting with John Gallagher. Hopefully RV tells us a story about Ballard's dog and the team picture to cheer us all up. No spoilers if anyone hasn't heard it. No, he did not talk about that. We talked strictly about his Toronto Sun piece. Tammy writes in, no grit, no grind, no greatness. There couldn't be a more perfect slogan to sum up the Leafs and their postseason. Well said, Tammy. And Mike St. Jean, did you hear that someone on X doxed Marner's address on a post? That's taking it too far, man. I get despising, disliking an athlete, but just let the guy live in peace, man. Like,
that's when you're the problem. There's time, you want to talk about people being a problem to play in this city, and for stars to want to come and play in this city. Now you're the problem. Now that is a legit talking point. What good is going to come from that? Harass the guy with a brand new baby and his wife doesn't feel safe. Like, you're a fucking idiot. That's where the sport goes too far. The passion is too far, and it goes into mental, just ridiculousness. There's not one person in the media or anywhere else that's like, yeah, he deserves that, man. Like, carve him about his game, about his attitude, about anything within the confines of that thing. But when you go home to your wife and kids and you're giving out the address for what? Someone to go throw eggs at his house? Or like, what are you doing, man? I got no time for that shit.
Yeah, I never understood that about pro sports. Like, even watching, seeing in the NFL or soccer and over in Europe, just how heavy it gets, and there's fights and people dying. It's like, I get being a fan, man, but there's a level of fandom I get to. I don't cross it. Like, and I know a lot of the times there's alcohol and drugs involved, but like, there's a level where it's like, I understand and comprehend. It's just a sport. At the end of the day, we're all humans. We got families. We got shit to do. That's not playing the sport,
Yeah, like when you get over to Europe with the football, man, that's
what got me in a loop about these conversations about like the media, how we're too harsh. If you think we're too harsh here, go watch like soccer overseas, man. Like, they'll carve your ass up. It's not like here.
They're killing refs.
Yeah, dude.
Psychotic shit. Yeah, it's a good comparison, man. You think it's hard here? Go play for a team
Man United.
in Manchester. Yeah. Good Lord, man. That's super intense. And just everyone wants it so bad, and there's so many people that it gets to this point, and the disappointment of this group, when it's just tough. You draft those 3 guys of that pedigree, with their skill. Why couldn't have we got a Leon Draisaitl in there, or a Nathan McKinnon in there? Like, it just so happens they all kind of are from the same kind of fancy type of mentality that just always comes up short in the big boy game, and that's the NHL playoffs, man.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And certainly, I think you look at some of the decision-making over the last couple of years as well, that factors in. A couple more super chats, then we'll get to the Vaive interview. Tammy writes in, I hated Berube's self-congratulatory comments about how good they were and what they accomplished in the regular season. They made the playoffs for the past 9 years. We know it's the same PR verbal vomit we've listened to every year. It's right. I turned it off when he talked about learning from Game 7. I'm done learning at this point. Jose Duarte, thank you so much for the super chat and support of Sick Kids. I would like to know why Matthews wasn't put on LTIR and better the team for free agents. John Gallagher, this is not new with 34, Columbus and Montreal. It's true. Even when he's been healthy, he hasn't really done his thing in the Stanley Cup playoffs, Rosie.
Yeah, you wonder now, looking back, if you pulled a move that I don't like at all. I don't think is right, and I think they'll rectify it in the next CBA. But like, Auston, you're not scoring down the stretch. You don't seem like yourself. You
You're
can't get your
hurt.
shot off like you could. Something's bugging you. And even if you are hesitant or unsure if time off is even going to help you, well, it's probably not going to hurt if you are in fact hurt to the point where it's affecting your performance. Put him on LTIR for the last 2 months of the season, and then you can even go shopping with him being off the books in the trade deadline, and then just bring him back for game one, just like Tkachuk did, just like all those other teams have done. Who would you have had that could have been like given the speech in the room and led the charge and helped blaze the trail to put the Florida Panthers on their heels in that second period? Like, it just makes you wonder if the decisions that were made were wrong, because everyone was wondering. It was very clear. Are you going to put Matthews on LTI? I heard it was totally a talking point going into the trade deadline, and they certainly didn't. They just limped around with him, and he was not effective.
Well, put it this way. Look who Florida picked up with the LTIR money. They got Seth Jones from Chicago, who's been an absolute stallion. They got like a three-headed monster right now on the back end. And then they got Brad Marchand, who scored some big-time goals. I thought that was a joke last night, handling his shit. The guy shot the puck at him, so he shed them, tried to go after him, and he got 10 and a 2. I don't know. The officiating's wild these days, but I digress. Let's get to the interview. The following interview is brought to you by our good friends over at Greta Bar YYZ, the ultimate hangout spot in Toronto. Whether you're catching the big game, diving into some classic arcade action, or grabbing some unreal street food, Greta Bar's got you covered. Planning a team-building night or a corporate event, Greta Bar is the perfect place to bring the crew together for good vibes and great memories. For more info, head on over to gretabar.com. That's gretabar.com, 590 King Street West. Greta Bar, let the games begin. So to set things up, I spent some time yesterday with former Leafs captain Rick Vaive. The Toronto Sun put out an opinion piece. Vaive and I guess Lance Hornby, I believe, worked together on this one. If you can't stand the heat in Toronto, time to go. So that's where the conversation sort of started with Rick. Enjoy. Rick, thank you so much for doing this today. And certainly a couple hours now, a couple days removed from the Game 7 debacle. How are you feeling about life right now?
Well, I'm okay about my life, but that was, what would I say, terrible approach to that game. I mean, it looked like guys were scared to touch the puck or to get hit or anything like that. It wasn't fun to watch. I was at the game actually with my son. And I think it was when it was 5-1, I think we were out the door.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to call it. And there's just so much disappointment. What inspired the Toronto Sun article, firstly, from you?
Well, I did it last year with Lance, and apparently the Sun liked it and wanted to do it again this year. So I just said, sure. I mean, not a big deal. I'll do it. And it was fun. It was fun.
A lot of good thoughts in there, and you were pretty blunt on your assessment of Mitch Marner. What's missing from his game, in your opinion, that makes you feel he's not cut out for Toronto?
Well, I think if you're going to play in Toronto, first of all, if you're from Toronto, that's even more intense. But I mean, you got to be able to let things roll off your back and just go out and do your job. And I'm not so sure that he's capable of doing that. I think he takes the insults that people talk about him and stuff like that. I think he takes that very personally. And you can't do that if you're going to play in this market.
Pretty not. Yeah, you can't. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And it looks like, again, to your point, he gets intimidated. I think there's been so many different points and times in his tenure in Toronto. Do you think it's a foregone conclusion that he's done? He's moving on, both parties?
Well, I wouldn't say 100%, but Darren Ferris, who was his agent, likes his guys to go to free agency and see what's out there. So I'm assuming come July 1st, he probably won't be signed. Now, I did see the Berube comment about him wanting them to sign him, re-sign him, but I mean, that's not his call. And unfortunately, and I mean, he's a great player. There's no question about that. It's just, can he live and play in this market? And I'm not sure that he's capable of, putting all those other things aside and going out and getting the job done.
Do you think he can thrive elsewhere, or is this a question of his playoff DNA regardless of the market?
Well, I will say that in the playoffs, I mean, he's a smaller guy. And when you're playing against the Florida Panthers, who are big, tough, they like to hit. I mean, that's tough for him to do that. But I just think being in, let's say Utah or San Jose or somewhere like that, I think he's gonna not feel quite as bad as being here in Toronto, being a Toronto kid.
Yeah, there's a lot of heat certainly in this market. And along those lines, you went on your piece to predict John Tavares will re-sign in Toronto. At least you think so. And again, hearing the comments from Locker Room Cleanout Day, it sounds very likely, at least in my opinion. Where do you think Tavares' game's at, and why do you think he's a good fit in this market right now?
Well, I still think he's got a couple of years left, 2, maybe 3. And obviously they're not going to sign him to like a 7-year contract or anything. But I mean, I think if he was willing to take a pretty good hometown discount, I'm talking probably, 3 million, 3.5, 4. I think it could work out for 2, maybe 3 years. He's still got game. He's going to be 36 in September, but I mean, he had a heck of a year, and either that or they both leave and they have $22 million to spend on some other guys.
It's true. It's true. And that's a thing too with free agency. I just don't know who is going to come in. And again, there's so many moving parts, whether it's Sam Bennett or an Ekblad. But even looking back at Game 7, what bothered you the most about that display from the Maple Leafs? You talked about it earlier. You left even before the game was over.
Well, I think what bothered me the most was they weren't invested in getting the job done. I mean, it was pretty obvious that some guys didn't want to get involved in the physical part of the game. And I mean, when you're playing in the playoffs, I mean, the game is played 3-4 feet from the boards. I mean, you're not getting down right into the slot like you are in the regular season. You're going to take bumps and bruises, and it just looked like a lot of guys weren't willing to do that.
Kind of disappointing too. Well, it's not kind of. It is disappointing when everything's on the line. You're playing the defending Stanley Cup champions. You're in a Game 7 and you no-show twice in a row. Don't forget that, Game 5 and Game 7 at Scotiabank Arena. How much is that about coaching, and how much is it about just not being a dog? Because there's guys on that roster, like the bottom 6 I thought was pretty good in Game 7, but like it has to be the big boys who lead this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and I guess the most disappointing part about it was they played such a good game in Game 6 in Florida and won 2-0. And a couple of the big guys played pretty good. And then the disappointment in Game 7. So it was tough. It was tough to watch. It really was.
I'm guessing you're looking at substantial change for this team, and we'll get to that. But I wanted to get your opinion on Auston Matthews. So Locker Room Cleanout Day, he does disclose and confirm he had been dealing with an injury since training camp. It doesn't go into detail, didn't want to discuss the specifics. We talked about this on the show. I think there's more pros and cons if you're Matthews in the PR to just disclose what's been ailing this guy. But again, they're just not going to do it. What was your read on all that?
Well, I mean, personally, I think perhaps disclosing it probably would be the best way to go about it. But knowing Auston, and I've talked to him on several occasions at things that we do together, the alumni and the current players, and he's a very private, kind of quiet guy, and maybe that's why. Maybe he just didn't want to disclose it. It's, I mean, he doesn't have to. It's his prerogative to do whatever he wants. But, you know, I mean, the fact that it looked at times that, you know, he was hurt, I think it's pretty clear. You could see that maybe disclosing it would probably take a little heat off him.
Well, that's exactly the way I viewed it. It's like, it's bizarre to me. Like it's anything in life. Let's say somebody's shit talking me on social media for the job I'm doing on this podcast, and it's something beyond my control. Like, wouldn't you want to be like, yeah, like not that you want pity or you're trying to make an excuse, but to soften the blow. And like, that's the weird thing for me is that we're going to let this thing fester into the offseason. Like you're telling me whatever's ailing him now is still going to ail him in September, and it's going to be something for the opponent to look at. Like something's going on here, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a long summer ahead of him. You know, getting rid of these injuries, whatever they are, and then, you know, working out, getting ready for the season, to be ready when the season starts. So it's going to be a rather long summer for him. But again, yeah, I mean, when I saw that, I was surprised that he didn't disclose. I mean, I don't think you really have to go into total detail on every little thing, but he could have disclosed what was ailing him.
Leafs fans are pissed, and I've heard a lot of people suggest, hey, maybe Matthews should be traded. I can't get to that level. I'm not sure if you can as well, but what would constitute like substantial change for you? Is it as much as Mitch Marner moving on? Do you think they need to do more?
No, well, they can't do a whole lot. I mean, because Kyle Dubas gave all those guys no movement clauses. So, you know, when they tried to move Marner to Carolina for Rantanen, which how good would that have looked in the playoffs?
You're telling me, man.
You know, it's big, strong guy like that playing the wing with Matthews and Nyes, and you know, but he said no, I'm not going to do that. And they have that power, and that's the toughest part. I mean, if I was a general manager in the National Hockey League, I'll go, all right, I'll pay you what you're worth. I may give you a 10-team no trade, which means that gives me 22 teams that I can trade you to. And it doesn't tie my hands completely. But Kyle Dubas gave them all no movement clauses. And I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. It's their choice whether they want to leave or not.
It's exactly it. And the point I always like to bring up on Mikko Rantanen, somehow, some way, Colorado negotiated a contract where this guy had a 12-team no trade clause compared to these guys in Toronto. Like I think David Kampf has a modified no trade. Like they hand them out like it's Halloween. And I think you're so right. And I wanted to ask you this because you were a former Toronto Maple Leafs legend. Are we too hard? Do I got to be nicer to these guys and talk more nice about them?
Yeah, I'd like if people talk nicer to me when I was playing, but you know what? I mean, it's a pretty tough market, and you know, the fans can do whatever they want. I mean, they pay big money to go to those games, and if they don't like what they see, they can pretty much do whatever they want, say what they want, and I don't have a problem with that, except, you know, I think the players It depends on the player. Some of them take it very personally, which I think a guy like Mitch Marner, I think that bothers him and it drives him crazy. But other guys kind of let it roll off their back. And if you're not able to do that, then this market isn't for you.
Yeah, it'll eat you alive. And I think just to wrap, just reading your article as well, gave some praise to Craig Berube, and understandably so. I think he did a really good job with this
Yeah.
roster. Quite frankly, I think they just need a bit more seasoning and some tinkering and some more dogs and guys who are Craig Berube type guys. But what impressed you the most about the job Craig Berube did this season?
Well, I think just what I liked most was how calm he was behind the bench, regardless of what was going on any particular night. He was always calm, talking to the players very calmly. The odd time he would get upset and say a few things, but for the most part, he was very, very calm behind the bench. And, that shows you that, he's a guy that can handle this market. And I think going forward, he's the perfect guy to lead this team and coach this team.
And we'll see what they do over the next couple of months. Obviously, a very, very disappointing conclusion to yet another Maple Leaf season, losing in Game 7 here, the Florida Panthers. Rick, can't thank you enough for your candidness, being blunt and breaking everything down for us today. Appreciate it.
No, my pleasure.
All right, there you have it. Rick Vaive, the first guy to score 50 goals in a Maple Leaf sweater, the breakdown and the passion, and just sort of hunted down Mitch Marner a bit, saying he gets intimidated with it. I thought it was a fair analysis. He pretty much outlined everything he said in the Toronto Sun earlier this week as well.
Yeah, obviously a guy who's formed an opinion and watched all the games and, feels what a lot of people feel. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being honest. Everyone can see and watch the games. So to analyze them a certain way, I don't see a point of the smoke and the mirrors and deflection and all the BS. Call it like it is and try to get it right.
It's time now for the crispy hot take of the day, presented by the Ninja Crispy 4-in-1 portable glass air fryer.
Meet the first of its kind, the Ninja Crispy portable cooking system. The power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hand, so you can cook big or small batches. Just prep it, crisp it, serve it, and store it all in one.
It is an all-in-one system. It includes 4-quart, 6-cup Tupperware glass containers and 2 storage lids. The Ninja Crispy is thermal shock resistant and go from frozen to crispy in minutes. With the Crispy Power Pod, you get the power of a full-size air fryer in the palm of your hands. The 4-quart container fits 4 pounds of chicken or veggies. Cook a personal-sized meal in 7 minutes in the 6-cup container. Max crisp. Bake, air fry, and recrisp with the Ninja Crispy. You can prep, cook, and store anything from crispy favorites to one-dish meals. Visit their website in the link in the show description and stay tuned for your chance to win a free Ninja Crispy. Do you get a chance to see the hot take from yesterday, Rosie?
No, what was yesterday?
Producer Vic predicted that the Maple Leafs would sign at least 2 of the 3 Florida Panthers free agents. So we're talking Marchand, we're talking Ekblad, Sam Bennett. That was spicy, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't mind that spice, man. I like those players. I like their attitude. And I think, I don't like the idea that you're going to the team that's kicked your ass to say, can we have some of you so we can be better? It's like kind of reminds me of like the super teams in the NBA or whatever. But regardless, that aside, those players are the players that they need in Toronto. They have the identity, they have the understanding, they have the grit and the balls, and they play a certain way. And I think they would go a long ways in changing the attitude of this team. But that's not the crispy hot take today.
It is not. We got a fresh new take on this Wednesday. So here it is, courtesy producer Vic. After yet another disappointing season, nothing should be off the table, including replacing Brad Treliving and Craig Berube.
Vicky,
Whoa.
You've got tear it down. I think that's a knee-jerk reaction, and I don't agree with it, Vicky boy. I think that is off the table because those guys aren't the problem in Toronto. Those guys are actual steps towards the solution in Toronto. And that is a mentality that is different than this past era, that is focused more on the playoffs and being grittier and having accountability and getting the right people in place to be able to go forward with that idea. If you fire Craig Berube, who are you hiring to do better? If you fire Tree Living, who are you hiring to tearing it down to the studs might feel good when you're pissed off, but then when the dust settles and you look at this bare frame foundation and go, uh-oh, now what are we going to do? Then you're really talking about, they don't need to tear this thing down. They have a lot of great pieces in place. I believe Berube and Tree Living are two pieces of that puzzle that are in place to do the right things. It's other stuff that needs to change to have success further down the road in the playoffs.
I like this from X though. Someone check Vic into an insane asylum. That's where we're at here.
Vicky, that's an
agree.
emotional reaction.
No, I think it's an emotional reaction, but to Vic's point, I think when you lose that way, there needs to be like an assignment or an assessment team wide. And that's why I think I was laughing earlier on where it's like you're 2 days removed and you're already talking to John Tavares if you're Tree and Berube. It's like, let it breathe a bit. Like you're ready to bring back a guy who's done absolutely zero winning, and you're bringing back the same mentality and the same learning lessons, the same answers. And a guy, he was good this season. He had 74 points, but what did he do when the season was on the line? You can make the same case about a lot of players. So that's where I think the pushback will be.
But I hate when people sort of cut you off, say, well, he has to go because he wasn't here. So are you not allowed to have any players off of this era because they didn't win?
Got to be a mix.
So everyone's got to go. Like, where do you stop it? It's a puzzle, and you have to get the pieces so they fit together to make a final product. Yeah. And just because one piece of the puzzle was there when it didn't go right doesn't mean it can't go right with him still there, if you know what I'm saying. So I don't really agree with that. I don't see John, especially with the role he would adapt and the money and the cap hit in this next contract, if he in fact signs one. I think for all reasons that we went over earlier, it's okay to say, yeah, he could help us. Just because he didn't win while he was here, I don't think he needs to go. I don't like that take. I think, again, that's an emotional knee-jerk reaction because you're pissed off they didn't win.
For me, you got to rock the boat either way. Marner, it starts there. Like, and I know I use the comparison to the NBA a lot, and maybe it's unfair, but like Kyle Lowry's best friend, they dealt him. They're like, I don't give a shit that you're best friends. And maybe Marner and Matthews are super close, but I think we could see the best Auston Matthews ever if Mitch Marner's not here. The motivation, the anger, how pissed off he would be. And people are motivated different ways. They're clearly not motivated by losing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So you got to exhaust all options, Rosie.
I don't know what would get Auston to pop off in the playoffs. Being healthy, number one, would probably be an idea. But again, circumstance it plays a big part of this. Whose contract's up, who's not, what are you going to get them at? What's their role going to be? Who do you bring in instead? And if you lose X, how do you fill those numbers and that production? And that's a big conversation piece about losing Marner. He did have big numbers in the regular season and is a big reason they get to a good seed in the playoffs. All that comes into a factor, but the bottom line is we have seen these puzzle pieces together 100 times and maybe a few too many. It's definitely going to change. And I honestly think signing John Tavares at $5 million and putting him on the third line and maybe the second unit, depending on how it's clicking, that is big change. That's $6 million off of what he just was, a month ago. So that is change. And you have a chance to bring in a $6 million guy to maybe he's going to have some grit and some playoff performance, stats on his resume. Like there's a million ways you go about it, but I don't mind the John thing. Marner's going to go, but tearing up Berube and Tree Living, explain to me how you've got better in performing in the playoffs by doing that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And truthfully, as we roll on here, July 1st will be interesting for so many different reasons. I'm not blowing my load. If something doesn't come to fruition, that's fine. Personally, if I'm the Leafs, I'm calling every insider I know, and I'm starting to circulate. Hey, guy who's playing Dallas tonight, you're the captain of the Edmonton Oilers. We would love to have you in Toronto. There are ways to tamper without tamper. And I think if you're the Maple Leafs, it would be difficult for me, at least as a GM, to make any moves on July 1 before knowing what the fuck that guy's doing in Edmonton. Because I've been told, not so sure that he circles back to Edmonton. You just never know what can transpire. Does this guy really want to be in Edmonton for 20 years? No offense to Alberta.
Piss some Oilers fans off today.
I don't care.
It's funny because they're, I think Tree made some comments about, you don't necessarily have to exhaust your cap, limit and these huge commitments and contracts to people this year. Maybe you save it for later, and everyone just goes, McDavid.
Kaprizov's a free agent next summer too.
Yeah, I don't know. Who is you say?
Kaprizov.
No, yeah. I think with McDavid, it's going to be very dependent on whether he wins a cup. I am all out hoping for the Oilers right now. I think Dallas is going to be a phenomenal series, much better than the other one. And I do hope that Edmonton comes out and McDavid gets his cup, and I'd be happy for Oilers fans.
And then he's
great.
like, you know what? I've done everything here. Yeah.
But now it gives him a thing to say, I gave you what you wanted. I gave you everything. I gave you all these years. We won a cup. I love you. This will always be my home, or some bullshit. And then there's a statue out front beside Wayne, and it's Connor, and he can maybe go home where he lives in the off season and take Mitch Marner's spot, so to speak, where you got your house and your setup. You don't have to leave and pack up. It'd be amazing.
Never use McDavid and Marner in the same sense again, please. Do not do that to us. Wishful thinking, maybe. You never know. He probably does end up re-signing in Edmonton, but all I heard, it's not a bet. It is not a bet.
And it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
Very well said. Want to get into the action for Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365? They got you from game props, player props, totals, and the money line. You can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, the Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you're someone you know has a gambling problem, visit connexontario.ca. I clearly didn't hit my under yesterday, Florida and Carolina, whatever that was. But I like the Oilers to win game one here in Edmonton. I like them to win the cup. I've been saying that for weeks, months. And I think they win game one here in Dallas.
Ooh, I'm just going to take the over in that one. Skinner makes me, I don't like the goaltender matchup. Maybe you take the Dallas over. I don't know. I think Skinner and their goaltending is going to be the difference maker in that. The matchup of Ottinger and Skinner, yeesh, you've seen Skinner do different things. He's capable of playing really well, but also capable of being the sole reason they have no chance to win. So we'll see, but a high-scoring affair would be nice. I think it's going to be fireworks. I think there's going to be drama. I think it's going to be a phenomenal series, and I'm just looking at taking the over here tonight.
Fair enough. I know you were deeply enshrined going back and forth, Toronto and Olds, Alberta, and I guess you missed the last two games of the Vegas series where Stu Skinner shut out the Vegas Golden Knights, mighty Vegas Golden Knights, 2 games in a row. And he's starting to cook a bit, man. But again, my comparison is like Vegas won a Stanley Cup with Aiden Hill. So, yes, the Oilers can win a Stanley Cup with Stuart Skinner and your boy Calvin Pickard.
Yeah, well, they're damn close last year. Yeah, I know. I just see if this thing goes off the rails and they don't get by Dallas, I think that will certainly be a talking point. If he stands on his absolute head and plays like he did the last 2 games, sure, yeah, great. But he can go back and forth as he did last year. But when the going got tough, he found his game. So we will see. Maybe the over is not the play. I'm just telling you what I'm betting, Nicky boy.
Fair enough. I'm also looking forward to the Memorial Cup, Rosie, in Rimouski, and surprise, Easton Cowan and the London Knights are back in the mix there, and I hope he gets the job done this year, man.
Yeah, I hope good things. Nothing but great things that kid has done up until the World Juniors when it was a disaster. I remember covering that with you, kind of post holidays there, and maybe that's good for him. We talk about these players that we're talking about not having much for adversity and not building a lot of character, going through that. And then, going through this Memorial Cup, they talk about that being the hardest trophy on the planet to win just because of what you have to go through and how many different leagues you got to get through to be the top. And then you still have that whole Memorial Cup to go through. So I wish the best for that kid too. I think he's got some snot and some snarl, and to think about Matthew Nyes and Easton Cowan in their prime, all of a sudden we're starting to talk about some players with some of the stuff that we've been lacking the last few years.
The tournament kicks off Friday. Medicine Hat and Rimouski. Easton Cowan starts on Saturday. London against Moncton. Gavin McKenna's in this tournament as well for Medicine Hat. That kid is a phenom as well. There's a lot of talent in this tourney, so looking forward to that. We'll tie a bow on this puppy. We'll come back tomorrow, Rosie, again. A lot of people in the chat asking, where's Shanahan? Where's Tree Living? At some point in time, it's our understanding there's going to be a press conference where people are going to talk. This happens every year. I like the fact that they take a couple days, decompress, think about what's transpired, and then move on. And again, there's rumors of a huge board meeting tomorrow. So I think we're just waiting for the next shoe to drop here in this market.
Scary. Lots of scary meetings happening for everybody.
What do they say at these meetings? What kind of spread do they have in these meetings? Are we talking like sushi, chips?
I don't know. I haven't been in those meetings, but I know that they're not scared to feed you well with the Toronto Maple Leaf organization. So I imagine the best of the best will be on the table for that meeting, and we'll see if it's if people are leaving it with their job still or not, and promotions and moving around. And it's going to be kind of exciting, as shitty as it is to be talking about that kind of thing at this time of year. Changes to come, and we'll see to what degree that takes place after some of those fancy meetings.
If Shanny goes, do you think you ever see your alumni jacket?
My wife sent me a thing about a thing on Shanny, and she's like, "You better."
I think you're in trouble. I think you're in trouble here, buddy. If that's his last act as the president of the Maple Leafs, getting Jay Rosehill an alumni jacket, and then he doesn't see it through.
It's absolutely surprising that he even took a second to write an email about the goddamn jacket. I guarantee it's out of his hands at this point. So I don't think he'll have any bearing on said jacket.
If there's one thing to monitor over the next couple of months, will Jay Rosehill actually get his alumni jacket? Because we think Brendan Shanahan's gone. If you're asking me right now, I think he's done. And this was the last act. Maybe he's just trolling you. He's like, let's fit this guy and not actually get him one.
Yeah. If only I was on their radar that much. My goodness, it's shocking what it was. But I think that the rest of that task is in other people's hands. As he's.
Do you think this thing shows up? Like, what do you think the percentage is that you get this alumni jacket?
I think it's pretty good. The people all seem like good people in the alumni. They're on it. They seemed awesome. I met them in the box. They're all about measuring you up and getting you what you need. I don't think they are that level of organization.
I don't know. What if Randy Carlyle or Tim Hunter showed up? You're cooked. You're done. It's not a shot in hell you're getting that jacket. Dude.
I've kind of made amends with Tim Hunter, I think, even though he doesn't even know what we're making amends. I had a good chat with him at the Alberta Hockey Golf Tournament the other year, and all is well with everyone I've ever come across, Nikolai.
Fair enough. I'll just put it out there. If you find a Jay Rosehill alumni jacket in a dumpster in Toronto, you can return it to me in Liberty Village. I'll take it. I'll ship it out to Rosie. I just want to know where we're at in the process. Like, you were measured out for it.
They got to make it. Like the inside has your name and your number, and it has the logo that you last wore, like the style of Maple Leaf logo and stuff. So they said a couple of weeks from last time I was there. I'm not bugging them right now. I'll tell you that much.
No, I want you to email them after the show. Where's my jacket?
Hey, if Shanny leaves, you better not be taking my jacket with them. You guys, they're like, this guy is a nightmare. Dude,
that's my advice I would give to you. Get it to Shanny. Get it to that email before it says return to sender to that email. Okay.
I should email, hey, what's going on? It's Rosie. Yeah, buddy. Just wondering what's going on. Right, like an hour before that big meeting we're talking about. Talk about blacklist.
Hey, I thought we were there already. I guess not. But yeah, this is a big sidebar story. Will Rosie actually get the alumni jacket? I think we're going to start tomorrow's podcast with a poll to poll our great listeners and viewers. But Rosie, we'll leave it at that. We'll talk tomorrow, okay?
Sounds good. I'll be here.
Sounds good. Thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Want to Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to check out the LeafsNation.com. Thank you to Rick Vaive for spending some time with me as well. Go check out that interview on YouTube right now. I'm about to put it out. Producer Vic, thank you so much. Thank you to Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. Talk tomorrow. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.